Let's bring in our guy, Ryan Wilson. So, Ryan, it looks like Justin Fields should be fine, of course, in the long run here. But actually, the timing works out because we've asked you 5 veterans that have something to prove here in 2025, and Justin Fields happens to be on that list.
Hey, Tommy, good to see you. Yeah, he's at the top of the list for sure. A 2-year, $40 million deal to come to the Jets. After starting the season a year ago in Pittsburgh, that team went 4-2 before he found his way to the bench and was replaced by Russ Wilson. And now he's looking for a fresh start in New York, along with Russ at the other New York team in the city. But here's the thing that Justin Fields has to do to prove that he's worthy of that top 10 pick that he was back in the day of the Chicago Bears. He has to play more consistently inside the pocket. And that was the call we heard week in and week out last year when he was on the field starting for the Steelers. We know what he can do with his legs. He's made that abundantly clear going back to his time at Ohio State. But I would argue, and you talk to people around the league, Tommy, and they don't disagree, he was a better passer at Ohio State. Now, you can point to the reasons why. The competition was easier, the windows were bigger, but he needs to get better at the second, third reads and throwing the ball on time and layering the ball to the second and third levels, because we know he has a big arm. And if he can do all those things with the understanding that this Aaron Glenn team is going to lean heavily on the run, their defense is going to be really good, he won't have to do everything, but I think he needs to start making progress in the direction of being that complete quarterback, which we have seen glimpses of, but we haven't seen it all in totality. And you know what, Tommy? Maybe this injury is going to be a present in disguise, so to speak, in that it'll force him to be in the pocket and to be less mobile, at least through training camp, and work on some of the things we just talked about.
Okay, I think you bring up a good point there. Of course, week 1, Jets, Steelers, the quarterback swap, and Justin Fields right in the heart of all those storylines, a lot of it which you just talked about. We're entering a lot of quarterbacks in your players to prove it in 2025. Let's go to Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. Ryan, what interests you the most about what he has going on right there with the Colts?
It just goes to show, Tommy, you can go from being one of the best athletes on planet Earth and the talk of the town in the pre-draft process and a number 3 overall pick to a guy who maybe needs to work a little harder and take advantage of some of those God-given talents, because we're having a conversation where he was benched last year for Joe Flacco and he's in a QB battle with Daniel Jones. Now, if I told you that on draft day, you probably would have said, hey, let's not draft this guy. But again, the physical tools and the ability to be great, unlimited potential. He just hasn't been able to put together, in part because he's battled injury. And by the way, this graphic, if I'm Anthony Richardson, I'm putting this on my refrigerator and looking at it every morning to remind me that I need to do everything in my power to be the best player I can be, because to this point, it hasn't happened. And Shane Steichen, you get the sense that he's a little frustrated with how it's gone with Anthony Richardson, and the fact that we're having this QB competition just exacerbates things. But if he comes out, plays within himself, again, does a lot of the same things we talked about with Justin Fields in terms of playing on time, not leaving the pocket early, not taking huge hits in the open field, he'll have a chance to be a really good football player, Tommy. But he only had started 13 games coming out of Florida. So the learning curve is steep, but the athleticism is better than anyone on the field. He just needs to take advantage of it. You mentioned that quarterback competition with Daniel Jones. And Ryan, it's interesting because I've seen such a variance of how this competition's been framed. Some of it's saying it's a true quarterback competition up for grabs. Others saying that Richardson's still the heir apparent. He is the incumbent unless proven otherwise. Where do you sit in terms of, if you were Chris Ballard, what would you have in your quarterback room in terms of that battle right now? If Daniel Jones outplays Anthony Richardson over the next month, I think Daniel Jones is the starter. That makes the most sense to me. It's not like we're talking about a situation where Anthony Richardson is C.J. Stroud, for example, and he got hurt last year and missed the final 6 games as a hypothetical, and now he's coming back to reclaim that job. We've not seen that from Anthony Richardson consistently week in and week out. C.J. Stroud is going to be the starter no matter what. Bryce Young is going to be the starter no matter what. Anthony Richardson has a ton to prove, and there's a reason they brought in a veteran backup and not, say, a rookie 4th rounder who can learn by watching in Daniel Jones. So if DJ outplays him, there's every reason to believe that Anthony Richardson will be on the bench. Okay, no doubt about who the starting quarterback for the Chargers is. That's Justin Herbert, R-Dub, but why is Herbert a guy that needs to prove something for you this year? And this is a different conversation than the two quarterbacks we talked about previously. Justin Herbert has signed his second contract. He's signed through 2028, and he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks for a reason. What I want to see from him, Tommy, this graphic sort of illuminates it. I want to see him win games when he has to put the team on his back. He only threw 3 interceptions. You see the graphic in the regular season, and then I actually went back just to refresh my memory against the Texans in that playoff game, the wild card loss. He threw 4. Now, one of those was a tip pass, not his fault, but you're not going to win many games in the playoffs, especially by throwing 3 interceptions, all of the jump ball variety. So he has to elevate the teammates around him. They're going to be without Mike Williams. Keenan Allen's gone. I think that's okay. You have Quentin Johnson, your former first-round pick. You have Ladd McConkey, one of my favorite players in last year's draft class. And you've drafted a running back in Amari Hampton who's going to help give balance to that offense. I love what Jim Harbaugh does every place he lands, Tommy, and I think Justin Herbert just needs to get 5% better, and then the Chargers can not only be competitive and make it to the playoffs, but they can perhaps challenge the Chiefs at the top of that division.
There's something interesting there, though, too, because he picked, like, the worst time to have his worst game of the season. Ryan, but with Greg Roman, you mentioned Jim Harbaugh. Are they going to allow him to be in more situations so that when he's in that type of position, maybe he's not – shell-shock's like the wrong term, but obviously not the same experience of slinging it around because they're tending to be a little more conservative during the year?
Yeah, and that's the question. We didn't see Jim Harbaugh do that a lot in San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith back when you were out west, Tommy, and we didn't see it at Michigan with J.J. McCarthy. They won a national title by a, rising tides lifts all boats approach to playing offense and defense, and by that I mean everyone does their part. But I think Justin Herbert's special, especially compared to the other quarterbacks I just mentioned, and he can do those things, but I don't think it's going to be a situation where they put him in 5 or 6 times a game to allow him to put the team on his back if the running game is working and if the defense is doing what they hope it does. That's not how Greg Roman or Jim Harbaugh operate, and you just have to hope by going into whatever season this is for Justin, 5 or 6, that he can, through veteran osmosis, get those plays, make those plays that he needs to make in crunch time.
All right, we're exiting the quarterback portion of this segment here, but a little bit of a dig at your Steelers from George Pickens. Ryan saying, quote, "I'm definitely excited to run better plays," and that he's more than a deep ball guy.
Well, he needs to be an on-the-field guy and a locker-room guy, I think, most importantly, because he is an absolute special talent. He was a second-round pick coming out of Georgia, Tommy, and it's not because he tore his ACL the spring before. It was the off-field concerns. You talk to teams around the league, and that was the big issue. Was he going to be mature enough to handle being in an NFL locker room? And Mike Tomlin, perhaps better suited than most coaches in the NFL, can handle big personalities, especially the wide receiver position. I want to see what George Pickens can do in the final year of his rookie deal when there are no more excuses. Dak Prescott's one of the best passers in the NFL. CeeDee Lamb is going to take a ton of pressure off George Pickens, and he plays primarily from the slot. And all George Pickens has to do is go out there and make plays. He's secretly a fantastic downfield blocker, but only when he wants to be. And this could be a situation, Tommy, where we're in a few years talking about George Pickens as the latest version of Martavis Bryant, who was a former 4th-round pick who had first-round talent and just sort of washed out of the league because of maturity issues. Or is he going to sign a huge second contract, and wherever he ends up next year, he's going to be the number 1. So unlimited potential. Has a chance to be a top 3 wide receiver in this league. It's just above the neck. Can he put it all together and not get frustrated in the moment when things aren't going his way?
Let's end with Jaire Alexander. What does the DB have for you?
Yeah, 1-year deal in Baltimore, and you love it for the Ravens, and you love it for Jaire as well. The issue with Jaire, as you see it there, 2-time All-Pro, he was one of the best cornerbacks in the league when he's healthy, but he struggled to stay healthy and struggled to stay on the field. Back in, I think it was week 16 or week 17 of the 2023 season, Tommy, the Packers suspended him because he went to midfield as the team captain, even though he wasn't supposed to. I sort of love that. I talked to our buddy Kyle Long about it, and he thought it was funny as well if he had been on the team. But the issue with Jaire isn't the sort of quirky personality, it's the health. When he's healthy, he's a shutdown corner, even though he's not 6'1" and 220 pounds. But he's going to be playing on a lights-out defense where the secondary is going to be one of the best secondaries in the NFL. They have Marlon Humphrey, of course, Nate Wiggins last year, first-round pick. They drafted Malachi Starks. They have Kyle Hamilton. So there are no excuses if Jaire is healthy for him not to get another contract of the multi-year, tens of millions of dollar variety. It's just a matter of him staying on the field.
All right, 5 players, veterans with something to prove to our Ryan Wilson in 2025. Arda, appreciate you, my man.